Welcome back to the Consulting Growth Podcast. I have the pleasure today of being joined by Todd Taskey. He, as well as being a partner with Tower Partners and a very experienced M&A advisor, plus angel investor, also runs a fantastic podcast, which if you haven't listened to, I very much recommend you do. It's called the Second Bite Podcast, and we'll get into a little bit about that later. But welcome, Todd.
Thank you, Joe. I'm super excited to talk with you and your audience.
Tell us, as a bit of an intro, just tell us a little bit about yourself, because I know your LinkedIn profile kind of jumps in at the angel investor stage, but I'm guessing you've been around the block a few times.
Yeah, I spend all of my time working with entrepreneurs, mostly marketing agency founders, and we help them create transactions where they can sell their business and still, in addition to getting a significant portion of cash, get a significant upside by hanging on to or getting equity in the larger buyer. And we only and always represent the seller. And our clients are usually between $1 million of EBITDA and 5 million or 6 million of EBITDA, kind of in that range.
Yeah, great. So this is what would be called an equity role, isn't it? So in effect, somebody selling a bit of their company, or probably most of their company, and then getting a smaller share in a bigger pie.
The right way to think about it is that somebody is going to sell 100% of their business.
Sure. Yeah.
And when they sell 100%, there's three forms of currency that the buyer uses. Number one is cash, always our favorite. Number two is earnout. And number three is equity.
Yep.
And then those are the components, and each of them has their own complication other than cash, which is pretty easy and straightforward.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always impressed you managed to get so many guests with that who have done that or who are doing that, because they're not a common breed. I mean, I don't know about your experience, but mine is that very often people like to sell. They have to do the earn out because very often it's tied to whatever deal they're doing, but then as soon as they can, they want to disappear. So does it take a certain type of person who's keen just to keep going?
I think it's more of a time frame in their evolution.
Okay.
And this is what I mean. So I'll give you one example if I can.
Yeah, great.
I'll give you two examples on either end of the spectrum. So we have a bunch of deal trophies over here, and we did a transaction. It was Thanksgiving week of 2019. And we sold a company called Social SEO. And those guys were doing roughly 2 million of EBITDA on 10 million of revenue.
Nice.
We got roughly 4 times that amount, the EBITDA, in cash at close.
Nice.
We got another million paid out a year later. That was the earnout.
Right.
And they kept about 40% of the business.
Okay.
They sold to a private equity group. Fast forward to 2024, end of 24 last year, there's 16 million of EBITDA.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Yeah. They've done 4 acquisitions. They've grown in ways they didn't think were possible on their own.
Yep.
And this was part of the vision of the founder and the CEO that wanted to grow a business and realized, A, they didn't have the skill set to do it.
Yep.
B, they didn't want to use their money to do it. And C, they didn't have the relationships for financing and for debt and for integration and all those other things.
Right. Yeah.
So that's been a terrific success. And so, as I like to describe it in that example, that client wanted to continue to build the business in their image and likeness.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing. We have the systems. I'll worry about utilization rate. I'll worry about the HR manual. I'll worry about receivables. I'll do all of that. I just need some help to grow faster. And so in a very real sense, they still continue to own the business. They own a smaller portion of the business, and now that business is much larger. I would say a business like that, their equity piece is probably 4 or 5 times as valuable as what they got at close.
Right.
The other end of the spectrum, we have a deal over here called Endrock Solutions. We sold Endrock to a great company called Power Digital about a year ago. And so my guy at Endrock does conversion rate optimization.
Okay.
That's a narrow strip in
Yeah.
an
Niche.
in an overall financial, in an overall marketing solution. And so they did a transaction with Power Digital, and our guys took half of the money in cash and half of the money in stock.
Yeah.
Ned was running a business with 20 some odd employees. He's now the chief growth officer of Power Digital. They have 1,700 people.
Wow. Okay.
And he's doing all sorts of things with clients that he never would have imagined he could have gotten to.
Yeah.
He got a nice amount of cash, so the pressure's off, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I hear most, Joe, from people is, I didn't realize you could do this.
Okay.
I thought if I sold the business, I was going to be an employee for a year or 2 years in a boring job that I don't really like, and then I would retire from that. And that's just not what our guys like to do.
I'm dealing with a deal at the moment which is not dissimilar. So they'll get a chunk of cash. They'll get another chunk after the earnout, and they get a percentage of the firm there that's buying them. That's part of a private equity roll up. So, for those of you that don't know who are listening to this, private equity will make their money by combining several similar types of companies that perhaps have synergies, and they'll typically pay an EBITDA of a multiple of 5 to 7 on EBITDA, and then when they sell the big company, they'll get a much bigger multiple. So they kind of arbitrage it. Is that roll up something that is commonly behind these second bite deals?
So I'll parse the words for just a minute. When I think of a roll up, so let's talk about somebody that does SEO work, right? Here in the States. And a roll up means you're do SEO and you're 2 million of EBITDA. I'm going to buy a whole bunch of SEO companies, and now we'll be 10 million of EBITDA as an SEO. That's what I define as a roll up. We don't do those as much as what private equity would describe as a buy and build, and create an arc of services.
Sure. Okay.
So we'll take your 2 million of EBITDA in SEO. But the next company we buy is going to do social media marketing. And then we're going to do one that does paid media. And then we're going to do one that does email marketing, maybe a HubSpot agency. And so we will now not only be able to cross-sell, but we'll be able to offer a fuller suite of service, which typically allows us to go upstream to larger clients.
Yeah, I think it's something that there almost needs to be a course that owners of firms can go on to help explain all these terms, because it helps explain the logic of private equity, especially.
It's interesting. I'll plug the Second Bite podcast that you had mentioned before. So we have a series right now called PE Insights.
Oh, I'm listening to it. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Really good. Yeah, really good.
Yeah. So we ask, I have 8 guests on there, all private equities from different firms. And I ask them one question, and then each person answers that. So it's topical from that perspective. You can get some insights that way. Also, I mentioned Ned McPherson. He was on the podcast. You can listen to him talk about his experience. The purpose for the podcast was to create an environment, joke, kind of like you're doing, for founders to hear these stories directly from other founders. And we encourage on the podcast, people talk about good, bad, what worked, what didn't, what was worse, what was better, those kind of things.
Yeah, brilliant. Listen, I need to apologize to you because I gave you a sort of approximate questions that we'd be talking about, and then we veered off completely.
Those are the best ones, right?
A whole load of definitions, but I'm blaming my ADHD on that. Oh, okay. So let's talk about. There you go. You mentioned sometimes things go wrong. What are the most common things you see? Somebody will have built what we would call a small, successful people business. They go for the second bite, either as part of a roll up or a buy and build or some other structure, but then it doesn't work out. Let's forget about the externality, things that can't be controlled within that firm at the moment. What internal things often go wrong with those types of deals?
As I like to describe it, when you do a second bite transaction, it's art and science. And the science is relatively easy because it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
EBITDA times multiple equals payment, how much is going when, and all like that. The art part to it is understanding why people fit with others.
Okay.
Right.
Do you mean personality wise?
Yes, and desire wise.
Okay.
And so a couple of thoughts. We have some clients, I call them low ego clients. I just want to win. I don't care what my title is. I don't care what and I just, as long as the money I've rolled into this new venture, I rolled in 2 million. I want it to be worth 10 million at some point. Just tell me who I report to and what I should say.
Yeah.
And then I have others that say, listen, I am in charge here. This is my thing. You're helping me build it. And that's fine too. And I appreciate those people. Those people are not worse than the first group.
Sure.
But if you take two of those people and put them together, you're going to have a problem.
Sure.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
So part of it is understanding how those people fit. And I think when we go through a process, we talk to a lot of potential buyers. When I talk to a client for the first time and they say, I want to do this or this or this, I used to give that a lot of credence. And now I realize there's no basis for you to tell me what you think you want to do. Because beyond the numbers and the title and the job description, so much of it depends on the people you're going to be in business with.
Okay.
And you may really like those guys. And I've had this happen many times. After a call, they'll say, geez, Joe, these are the smartest guys I've ever listened to. I would, if I could be in business with them, I would love to. I don't, and by the way, and you start to get this belief that if these guys were running the business, our business that I own a part of, I think we'd be dramatically better off than if I was running it.
Yeah.
Because then I could just focus on sales, or I could just focus on technology, or just focus on what my core is. Right. So what happens when you do a process? I want to get the best results for my client in terms of economics.
Yeah.
I also want them to have certainty around the deal that they've chosen, that they could say, if I did this deal in the summer of 25, it was the best value with the best buyer. And I know that not because I had one offer and I liked them.
Yep.
I know that because we had 4 or 5 offers. We spoke to 20. I am completely certain this is where I belong. I've seen all of that. Right. And so when you have that, you wind up with a better result.
Yes, yes, definitely. Okay, and this there's a follow-on question here, which is how do you assess that? Because I struggle with this because and you will have had the same. You get some founders, they just want the person that's going to be giving them the most money. So the best financial deal, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Correct.
But sometimes you look at that person and think, well, you're not going to work well under someone, or you probably don't want to do an earn out, and you're going to struggle hitting the targets and all the rest of it. So that people bit, is that something that you seek to not manage but advise on when it comes to personality types and the cultural
Yes.
bit?
So, and there's a couple of different ideas in here. Number one, usually what will happen, let's just make it up and say we have 4 offers for a business. And offer number one is the highest one, obviously, and so the client wants that. I always ask them, forget if all of the offers were the same, who would you choose? Oh, clearly I would take number three. I mean, that's the best fit. I liked them the most, blah, blah, blah. We will go back to number three and say, I got good news. Our guy wants to do a deal with you, wants to be a part of what you're doing, wants this, wants this. Challenge is you are not the best offer. My client has said, if you can do this, then they'll sign. It's the best fit. And there's just so much that goes into it from our end. If we brought all these people along properly and they know that there's multiple other buyers or at least multiple other interested people, that gives me validation as the buyer. We thought we'd offer 10. You're saying that other smart guys offered 11?
Yep.
Well, maybe it was us. Maybe we missed something. And usually buyers won't fumble a really good fit over a little bit of money. And a little bit of money it could be meaningful, right? So we'll go grab all of it. But and this is one of the mistakes I think people make. That is not something you're going to negotiate at the end right now because I'm a good negotiator.
Yeah.
That thing should have been happening from the very first call.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about before you got on. I'm talking about the first time I called them. And as I always tell clients, I'm working on a chessboard. I know you're looking for one buyer. To get that one buyer, I need a few things on the chessboard that I can move around, because I think I know what the outcome will be if we can accomplish those things, because we've done that so often.
Yeah, it's a nice way of putting it. I like the chessboard analogy.
Yeah, right. And you become more confident when you have 3 offers than if you have 1.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so that I've been on calls where the client has said, Todd, I would just never go work for those guys. And I'll say, great, I don't need you to go work for them, but I need an offer from them. So I'm going to keep progressing, and they understand the process.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, a sub question. The jumping back to what we were talking about earlier, the presence of private equity in these deals. Now, I think we both remember a time when private equity was hardly on the cards at all, and they've got more and more involved, not just as direct investors, but also backing companies that are buying, encouraging them to buy other firms. Now, a lot of my clients have an instinctive reaction against the simple phrase private equity because they haven't had a great reputation traditionally. And I'm sure you and I could also point fingers to private equity firms that you wouldn't touch with a barge pole because they treat people businesses like tech businesses or whatever. So how do you, from a buyer's perspective, from a seller's perspective, what should I look for in a good private equity firm? Or conversely, what should I be looking for in someone that I should be avoiding?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. In the US, we have Inc. magazine, and they rank the 50 founder-friendly private equity groups.
Oh, do they?
I don't know if they have anything like that in the UK.
No.
Otherwise, you just need to do a little bit more homework. We have spent 20 years developing these relationships, and our requirement is that. But here's the bigger picture. All of this stuff that people form their opinions around private equity are larger transactions that you read about in the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And in many of those, private equity comes in and says, you guys shouldn't be doing all this crazy stuff. And a lot of that crazy stuff is being over levered, too many humans, too much expense. So they get the reputation for making cuts and making life harder.
Yep.
In the space that I deal with, you can't cut your way to a profitable business. You need to grow that business And to grow a services business, we need more good people, not fewer good people.
Yeah.
Most of the people we deal with will create wealth for themselves, the private equity group and the private equity group investors, by building a valuable business, not by squeezing a couple $100,000 out of the entrepreneur at the closing table, right? And so from that standpoint, that's number one. Number two would be, again, going back to positioning and longevity. Once you sign an LOI, the first thing that happens is you do a quality of earnings and they check your financials. It's the most important thing. Every deal lives or dies based on quality of earnings. And so you certainly, as a side note, you want to have your quality of earnings accurate. But it's a bumpy road. And if you're a $2 million EBITDA business, I can guarantee quality of earnings won't come out at 2 million. Might be 1.977 at one, it might be 2.015, but it won't be exactly 2 million. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a little bit different. And there's ways we plan for that in advance, right? One way is if the buyer knows, like we described, there were 4 offers. I raised mine to get this deal and everybody else is, just waiting for me to fumble it. And now earnings came in a little bit weak, not because of revenue recognition or because of GAAP accounting or whatever, is 150,000 less than we thought. I want their first thought to be, I am not putting this deal at risk for 150,000 of EBITDA.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it. Right. So that's all, all that mishmash goes into it, but knowing what the outcome is going to be when you get into it at the beginning, you can position these things along the way so that you don't have those, kind of surprise and hurdles. I'll give you one tip. This is a great tip for your listeners. A lot of times when people put a deck together, right, to talk about the company, they'll show a huge year, a banner year in the current year and then next. I'll make it up. You've been growing 10% a year. Next year, we're going to grow 25%.
Yeah.
They do this because they think it makes the business more attractive. Number one, it does not make the business any more attractive. Number two, I don't believe it as the buyer. I do not believe it. But here's what happens. You get an offer, you get cash, and you get earnout. And just as you said, Joe, so what do I have to do to get the earnout? Oh, I mean, I don't know. Whatever you told us you would do.
Yes.
I mean, what's in the deck? They act like they don't know. What did you guys put in the deck? Now this fictitious number you made up because you thought it would make the company more sexy now becomes the requirement to get your earnout. This is why people don't get earnout. Not because their private equity group is screwing them, because they have set these false expectations that they knew from the beginning they couldn't get. Right? So we do the opposite. If they've been doing 10%, we put in 10, we put in 5. If somebody's been growing at 20% a year, the next year we put in 10% growth. And eventually the buyer, usually during the calls, will ask, hey, so you guys doing 20% a year? Oh, how come you put in 10% for next year? And this is one of the few things I coach my clients on. Their response is, well, that's how we do it. We always strive for 10% growth, and then we work as hard as we can to outperform that.
That's nice. I like that.
Listen, at our size, we don't spend a lot of time making up fictitious numbers about what we think the future will be.
Sure.
We have some rigor and we plan, but 10% growth is usually what our bogey is. That's why on most of these trophies over here, our clients get almost all of their earnout, if not all of their earnout.
Mm. That's quite a statement, because earnouts, I mean, full earnouts especially, are a very rare beast. So well done on managing those expectations.
And that's one. Let me give you the second thing that I think is helpful. We always have a ramp on the earnout, not a cliff.
Good. Yeah.
Right. So I'll give you a simple example. You're 2 million of EBITDA. and you have to grow to get your earnout 10%. So next year you have to do 2.2 of EBITDA. And if you do, the earnout is $1 million. Okay. If that's a cliff, meaning if you get 1.95 or scratch, you get 2.15,
Yep.
you get zero.
Yep.
That's terrible. That encourages wrong behavior on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we say, okay, so the earnout's $1 million. We have to grow, the hurdle's 2 million, and we have to grow to 2.2 to get the full earnout. That's 200,000. So for every dollar of EBITDA over 2 million, we get $5.
Yep.
So if we do the full 2.2, that's 200 times 5, that's $1 million.
Yep.
If we only got to 2.1, that's 100 times 5, at least we got 500 grand.
Yep.
Now, depending on your earnout, we would, if it's, let's say it's a 2-year earnout, whatever we didn't get, so if we only got 500 the first year, we can get that other 500 at the end of the second year if we outperform.
Yep.
And if we outperform, if we did 2.2 or 2.3, we don't get paid extra, but the 100 of EBITDA that we got over goes into our bank to start next year.
Right. Yeah.
If you sell that before you're doing LOIs to the buyer, it's a piece of cake to accomplish.
Yeah.
Because as I always tell the buyer, you will look like a champion. Because every buyer will give you lip service. We want you to get the earnout, right? Because that means you're performing well and on and on. Say, great, let's put some meat behind it. Let's put some substance in there. Give us a ramp. Give us the ability to make up and catch up, right? Give us the ability to, on and on from that. And when you can accomplish that, that's why our folks get it.
That's great. And it's so much more motivating as well, isn't it? Because we both will have seen sellers who miss the first year targets, but because of the structure of the deal, they just want to go home now. They don't want anything to do with it.
I've asked clients that all the time. So you just bought Joe's company and he missed the $2 million EBITDA, and now he's got to grow more than next year to get anything. What do you think he's going to do? I mean, do you think he'll stay? Why would he? It makes no. Joe's been an entrepreneur his entire life, and he just missed. He's angry with you, right? And he'll leave for sure. Yeah. And by the time he realizes, which is not going to take him a full year, he'll realize in month 8 or 9 we're not going to get the earnout, and he will just leave.
Yeah, it's a huge waste, and it used to be quite. I see less of it these days, but again, it requires an investor buyer who's open to sense, which isn't always the case. But
true, and if they're not open to sense, Joe, they should not be your buyer.
Yeah, agreed.
Right? We'll go find a better buyer.
Listen, I want to ask a question around it's especially as you focus more on the marketing side of professional services. In consulting, we're seeing a huge amount around AI and automation, productization, and it's slightly scary for some owners because they know they should probably be thinking about it or maybe even doing it, but not sure where to start, how to prioritize, and all the rest of it. Obviously, in marketing, there's a strong quant side, which data analytics has been around there for a long time. But in terms of, say, using AI to improve operations, to offer new services or automation, whatever it is, how are you seeing sellers successfully responding to that and successfully making changes in the firm that might push up the multiple a little bit?
So great question. I don't know how, I mean, AI and having AI infused in your business is here. It's been here. So if you're not there, you should get there pretty quickly. What we will see, what I see amongst most of my clients is that they can serve more clients with fewer people.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work that people don't like to do, filling in cells and doing analytics and so forth, has been eliminated. And so companies, in theory, will become more profitable. So the multiple might stay the same, but the EBITDA, the profit margin, should go up, which makes the company more valuable. That very simple description should have everybody listening figuring out, what do I do with AI?
Sure.
What do I do with AI is pretty tricky. I'll throw out one thing. I have the founder of Power Digital, which is their transaction they did with private equity had them roughly 600 million of value.
Okay. Right.
Created from scratch. A gentleman named Grayson LaFrenz is the CEO and the founder there. Also was a guest on the podcast. He has started so now he's executive chairman at Power Digital. And they've got a tremendous management team there that's running everything. So he's not left with a lot to do. So he created a business called Cadre. And if your listeners want to check it out, it's GoCadre, CADRE.ai. And what they do is help folks like you're talking about, your clients,
Yep.
figure out what AI technology they should be implementing and how to do it in a services business from a guy who has built hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth doing exactly that.
Great.
So, and
Thank you.
yeah, so Go Cadre. Grayson LaFrenz is his name. I'm sure you'll put it in your show notes, Joe.
Yeah.
And they, they'll talk to you and get you set up and help you figure it out. But AI is clearly there. It's clearly, I think, in consulting firms and marketing firms, going to make all of them more profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question will become, does that mean I am a more profitable consulting firm, or will I reduce my cost to get more market share?
Sure. Yeah.
And that'll be decided on an individual basis. I would guess people think it's easier to sell a cheaper number. So I would imagine that cost will potentially go down to the end consumer, but it will be a great boom for the services industry for sure.
Mm. And how about sort of the productization side of it? So I know buyers and investors like to put firms in boxes, and traditionally they've had a SaaS box, they've had a tech box, and they've had a professional services box. Now those with different multiples with each associated with each. Now those boundaries are being blurred. What's your advice to firms that have a bit of a product box or a bit of a SaaS box, but they're mostly still people? Do you ever encourage them to spend a couple of years building out the product side of things so that they can be classified or as more of a SaaS firm, or is it more complicated than that? It's a leading question.
Yes. So here's the rule of the road. You are what your revenue says you are. I've sold firms that have great data platforms and they have some SaaS subscription to that, and it's 8% or 10% of revenue.
Sure.
That's not a SaaS business.
Yeah.
That's an agency services business. You're going to be paid and it's going to be valued as a service. That's it. Right. So here's the other thing. So I'll give you a specific example. We sold this company, Sproutword.
Oh yeah, I know them. Yeah. Okay.
So Sproutword is a D2C. They do marketing for direct to consumer brands. They have a data platform. So large D2C brands can ingest their own data and then make media purchases based on that.
Uh-huh.
It's fantastic. And we did a transaction, and Matt said to me, here's the thing. Today, I think we might have the best data platform, data analytics platform out there in the market. Next year, it'll be pretty good. The year after that, it'll be the same thing everybody else has.
Sure. Yes.
Unless we spend a crap load of money to keep evolving that.
Yep.
We don't have a crap load of money.
Yep.
And the money we've spent so far is my money. And that's hard.
Yeah.
So we did a great transaction for them. We got a services multiple on that business.
Yep.
And we got the high end of the range as a multiple because they had cool technology.
Okay.
And it gave somebody else a jump start down that road. So that's what I would say. The notion that you have some cool technology, to be fair, everybody has cool technology.
Yes.
And if it's what I need to know is that your cool technology can produce money.
Yep.
That's what makes a SaaS company valuable, software company valuable. Not that the software is awesome. It's that they have so much revenue coming off of that software.
Yeah, I think it's a really good piece of advice for small firms that perhaps they started as people firms or still are people firms primarily, and they've got a product that they developed that perhaps is selling reasonably well. But that thing you said where actually at the moment it's best in class because no one's thought of it or it's still in someone's garage, but next year, meh. And then the year after, we're nobody because we haven't got the funding to put into it.
Yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind, Joe, is that if you're a services business with some technology to it, the buyer is a services business. Software and SaaS businesses don't want human beings.
Sure.
I'm not going to buy a business that has 50 humans, for God's sakes, right? And those people pay a certain multiple for businesses. If you go to the SaaS world, they're going to say 80% of your revenue is from service. We're not going to pay a SaaS multiple. So you're stuck on this in between where you spent a lot of money to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
If it gives you a competitive advantage so that your clients stay and you have better retention and you become more profitable because you can do more with less people, that reflects itself in your financials, and we can get the multiple off of those financials.
Yep. Yeah. And of course, the other thing that is worth emphasizing here is that even with the cost of AI and coding and automation approaching zero, I've still seen a lot more failures than I have successes when it comes to people firms trying to productize something.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why I think understand, and gosh, Facebook is going to spend $50 billion to improve their offering. OpenAI, Gronk, Gemini, they're all spending at record levels.
Yep.
All you have to do is let them do their thing and then figure out how to implement it in your business to get results for your clients.
Yep. I don't know if you saw recently Y Combinator put out a call for full stack professional service firms in effect. So AI first, a thin cohort of senior people, but mostly AI led. And that I found that quite interesting because it does kind of throw the gauntlet down to that traditional leverage model of people businesses.
It reminds me of 15 years ago when marketing agencies said that they were digital first.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Right. It's an evolution of the same thing. The magnitude here feels like it's going to be significantly different. We're a ways away from it having, we've got compute and energy challenges to the AI industry that they've got to figure out, and on from there. So like everything, as they say, we overestimate the near-term impact and we underestimate the long-term impact. I think if your listeners stay focused on serving their clients really well, AI will be a tool that will help them do that.
Really nice advice. Love that. I want to move on to DD because it's something that is a theme that comes up quite consistently in your podcast. And it's something that a couple of my clients are going through at the moment, and I think we both know what a pain in the neck it can be. But when it goes wrong, what are the most common red flags that you would see derailing an otherwise good DD process?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much of it comes down to your financials, right? So having, if I'll ask people all the time, so tell me about your finance function. Are you in pretty good? I mean, are you pretty good? Yeah, I think so, is the answer I get. That means no.
Yeah, okay.
I need somebody to say, oh my God, you should see, Jennifer, our CFO, is a rock star, right? Somebody needs to be on top of your financials because in the US, it will be GAAP on an accrual basis. Are you GAAP and accrual? I think so. That means you're not, right? The
Yeah,
response I need is, of course. I mean, how else would I do it,
yeah,
right? So many people do cash. You can be a cash-based taxpayer, but your books have to be accrual because your buyer, when they eventually sell, is going to be held to that standard. So it needs to match up, right? So there is, there's plenty of good folks, smart folks that can help there. It will seem like an expense. It may be the best way for you to fully understand your business if you haven't been spending money there, to make sure that you know and understand that. And if you think about it this way, if your business sells for 5 or 6 times EBITDA and you have a good finance person that helps you find an extra $50,000 of EBITDA,
mm,
that's $250,000. I'm sure you're not paying that finance person $250,000 to
sure.
run that function for you, right?
Yeah.
So it's an automatic return for you to know and understand your financials well.
Yeah, and they're your best buddy when it comes to those interviews and presentations that you have to do. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
especially if you have them in the loop. The other tricky part about due diligence is that it is a second job.
yep.
And a lot of people let them distracted from their first job. Due diligence is going to take 60-ish days, 75 days. You cannot have your revenues drop off during that period.
No.
Absolutely not, because the buyer will be concerned. It will either blow up your deal or they're going to want to shift some component of your deal.
Yep. Yep. Which is why we like to see owners who aren't responsible for 99% of the sales, or at least have someone who can manage that process for you.
Yeah, and I will say this, that doesn't intimidate me at all. I've got a lot of clients like that. The question for them become, and I've had plenty of people that say, you know what, Todd, if I could go back to just being a sales guy, so I don't have to worry about utilization rates.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about accounts receivable. I don't have to worry about, somebody being on vacation and jobs get, if I could just do sales again, man, that would be a beautiful life for me.
Yep.
So, but to your point, you need to make sure the process is being managed. You need to bring people in, which is always, a lot of times founders get scared to tell somebody we're considering a sale of the business. So they don't tell anyone and they try to do all the due diligence themselves, and it's really hard.
Mm. Yep. Yes, I have a client going through it, or a couple of clients going through it at the moment, and it's a beast. And that's when everything goes well.
Yes.
Good. Okay. I people always like to share the great stories, but I was wondering if you could share a near death deal story, something that almost collapsed.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, Joe, because a lot of times people say, if you want to walk away from your business without an earnout or other restraints, hire a professional CEO and have them run the business. So we just sold a business last month where the 3 owners are not active in the business. They're actually attorneys and they work in their law practice. They have a legal marketing firm and they have a CEO that runs that business.
Okay.
The challenge becomes, any buyer, as they go through the due diligence process, is looking for risk, and they're looking for key person risk. So what if for example, if the CEO you mentioned is 100% responsible for sales, that makes me nervous. What if he gets hit by a truck? In this particular case, what if the CEO leaves?
Yep.
Because if he leaves, we've got a real problem. So when they hired the CEO, they did not have an employment agreement with a non-compete. So we had, so
Wow.
number one. Number two, the they gave the person didn't have any equity ownership.
Okay.
They gave him a nice bonus, about 10%. So the deal was roughly 15 million. He got 1.5 million at close. Actually, I think he got 1.3, 1.2, and then he got some equity.
Yeah.
1.2 is ordinary income, so after tax, it's several hundred grand. It's a little bit more than 1 times annual.
Yep.
The buyer wanted a long non-compete. This CEO has been in this industry his entire career. What if I don't like it here? So where we got to, just so this was all sorts of negotiation, because at one point it was over. At one point it just wasn't going to work.
Okay. Wow.
The buyer said, listen, if we terminate him without cause, no non-compete. He can compete against us tomorrow.
Okay.
The buyer was willing to do that because the CEO was so valuable to the business, it would make no sense for us to fire him.
Yeah.
We need him, right? But this buyer was like, for all the things we talked about at the beginning, what if I don't like it here? It's owned by private equity. What if it's bad? What if it's, and they said, listen, we're not going to let the guy quit and then go compete against us. We just wrote a check for $12 million, right? So, behind the scenes, we worked it out that one of the lawyers said that they would hire him, the CEO, to run the law firm and pay him a certain salary if he did in fact quit over this period of time, and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So there's always solutions. That's
Yeah.
a big part of what we do, is just solve problems, right? And there's a bunch of different, constituents that need problem solved for along the way. But that would be one where you think, and we did one a couple of years ago. They have 2 key salespeople. One of them makes 700 grand, one makes 500 grand, right? They both understood during the transaction, the buyer wanted them to have an employment agreement because they didn't. The seller never felt like he needed it because I'm paying 1,700, 1,500. Where are they going to be, right? In a new environment, the buyer said, these guys need to have an employment agreement and a non-compete. And both of them extorted money from my client. Might be a little bit strong, but it sure felt like that.
Strong negotiation.
Yeah, but it was a bunch of work to get it to work itself out, and we did. Okay. But that's an example that comes with a touch of advice. The example so that one almost died, and we were able to resuscitate it by just thinking creatively about what the problems are and how to solve.
Yeah.
The number one reason why deals fall apart is because you're a $2 million EBITDA business. We went through, and you're selling for 5 times, that's 10 million bucks. We went through due diligence. Turns out you're only $1.8 million. If the buyer is willing, they'll still do that deal. 5 times $1.8 million is $9 million.
Mm.
These guys are screwing me. F them. I'm not doing it. Private equity's always like this, blah, blah, blah. Private equity will say, we did an audit of the firm, and you're just you're not doing it on GAAP. It's not accrued properly. Just look here. This is why it's $1.8 million. It doesn't matter. People are pissed.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just another thought.
Great. Yes. Yeah. It's as much emotion and art as it is, science and logic, isn't it?
It's a tricky, and that's why we keep all these and display them, right? Every single deal is important to our clients. they're difficult, they're emotional, they're challenging, they're rewarding, they're frustrating, they're exciting, all of that jumbled up into, one big pile.
Yeah. Interesting job. Listen, Todd, thank you. But last question for you. Tricky one. Looking back on 20 odd years of your experience in M&A and also hosting the Second Bite podcast, what is the one piece of advice you wish every founder of a people firm heard on day one?
I thought about that. Thanks. I've got two quick things. Number one, I don't like people always talk about clients that love us or people love it here. Those are data points. Every company has somebody that's been here for 12 years or 8 years or what is your employee retention? That is a metric that will tell me as the buyer what it's like inside your shop.
Mm-hmm.
We don't ever, in the decks we do, we never talk about culture and how great it is here. When we show the org chart, we show how long people have been here.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what culture is, right? There's a reason why, number one. Number two, what's your retention, right? Your customer retention. I don't care you've had somebody here since the day you opened up. Everybody has those guys. I'm talking about of your revenue, how much of it recurs on a regular basis or whatever the case is. Right. The second, the biggest thing, so I think that would be it. Pay attention to those key metrics in your business. Mm-hmm. And in the services business, those are two of the big ones.
Yep.
And so I would think that's it. And then I would say, decide what you're building. If you're building something that you want to sell, you will make different decisions than if you're building something because I can pay my car, I can pay my wife a salary, I can employ my kids, I can do good work, and I'll just take as much money as I can. Those are different decisions because they'll lead you down a different path.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what you will find for your folks that have built a good business, that there are options for them before they want to exit, which means they don't have to keep 100% ownership of their business and that chunk of their wealth locked up in the business for that entire period of time.
Yep. Yeah, the two great bits of advice. And, I think we both will have had people come to us. I realize we do slightly different things, but who say, I've built this business up over 40 years and I've now decided it's time to sell. And sometimes you've got to give them some bad news because they haven't built it to sell. They built it as a lifestyle business. And the transition from A to B isn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes when people get straight information like you deliver, then they realize, I'm not going to make this sellable. I'll just take as much money from the business as I can over the next 5 years. And that'll be my exit strategy.
Todd, listen, thank you so much for your time and advice. If our listeners need to find you, where can they get hold of you?
LinkedIn is the best. You can track me down on LinkedIn. Tower Partners, you can find me there. Second Bite Podcast, you can find me there.
All over the place.
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find. LinkedIn is great because it's easy and we can connect there. Taskey is how you spell my last name. Reach out, tell me if you've heard us on the podcast, and I'd be happy to connect and stay in touch and chat if need be.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Todd. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Joe. It was great.